floated. Here in our area, some of the vaccinations that we routinely will work for, and most of your horses, if they have been vaccinated on an annual basis, will need these at least once a year. Again, it's a good suggestion to contact your local veterinarian and see if there are different kinds of diseases that they suggest you vaccinate for. Tetanus is one that can really be done on an annual basis. Eastern and Western encephalomyelitis or sleeping sickness can be done, again, on a once-a-year basis, usually in the spring. Influenza or flu, at times we really suggest that this is done more frequently, such as approximately every 60 days. One that's not on here is very similar to influenza, is the rhinopneumonitis, and for these horses, the EHV4 is really suggested that they are vaccinated for that almost every 60 days. Rabies is something that in Nebraska we had not previously recommended you vaccinate for. It has become more prevalent. We do see horses with rabies, and in the areas that many of these horses are, out there in the lots and that, it really is becoming more of a recommendation within the state to go ahead and vaccinate for rabies. West Nile virus, many of us do know that we do need to vaccinate for West Nile virus, and I would visit with your local practitioner to determine if you need to vaccinate once or twice a year. Here in Nebraska now, most recommendations are to vaccinate once a year, but to do that initial vaccine a little bit later, say in May, to help protect those horses through the peak mosquito season. And this more or less just kind of concludes a simple discussion over not only how to feed your horses more efficiently, but also some good tips on some basic routine health care for your horses that you're using in your feedlots. We're going to continue on our discussion of condition scoring horses, and we've already taken you through one live horse and showed you the different areas that we do look to evaluate the horse's condition. And another thing that you can also do is to look at this little schematic here and kind of see some differences in our low condition scores of 1 to 9 and how they would look at from behind and in the different areas. Most of us would agree that the Palomino horse over here is not a very desirable condition, and the horse here, the sorrel, the chestnut horse, is much more desirable body condition. And we know that this is a horse that, for whatever reason, is just not carrying enough weight, and we would certainly hope that more of our horses would look as this one is over here. So basically the idea of being able to condition score your horses is to recognize some of these things, and just to show you some of the various levels of condition on these horses, is these are a couple horses that are really, we would say, in that condition score of 2 to 3. And remember, to do a good job of this, we need to run our hands over those horses. But you can see all of these horses are pretty easily to see their ribs as they stand there, and are just not as thrifty as we would like our horses to be. These two horses are kind of what we call in that middle area, kind of borderline, and we would condition score them of about a 4 to 4.5. This horse, it's pretty easy to see her ribs. This horse too, the ribs are kind of standing out naturally. She's carrying a little bit more condition than the other. And if I had these horses in a lot or was working them, I would sure want to feed them up a bit, because they're not going to have as much energy, they're not as going to be as productive, and if we were moving into that heavy work kind of time, I would be concerned that they're going to be able to maintain their level of performance. Then we get into the scores of 5 to 7, and these are really where we'd like most of our horses to be. You can see they're carrying, just look like an average healthy kind of horse with some fat over their ribs and behind their shoulder in all of these areas here, and just look more or less kind of that middle range. These horses are, we'd say, kind of in that 6 to 7 range, and again, they don't look obese, they've got good cover to them, look like an average horse, just in very good shape. The thing, again, here's a couple other examples of horses just in that middle range area that are carrying good fat, but they're not over to that over-obese side of things. Because the other thing I do want to caution you of is that if you get these horses to the obese side of it, when they're 7s or for sure 8s to 9s. And these horses really are considered to be in a high risk category. You can see this mare, she's pretty patchy over her back and over here. Same thing with this horse here. And to do a really good job, if you run your hands over these horses, no matter how hard you press, you're not going to feel any bones, you're not going to feel any ribs. The big concern over these horses is they are much more susceptible to problems such as laminitis and colic because they are carrying so much excess weight. Those horses that are condition score on the low end, on the 2s and the 3s, you can feed those horses much safer, however, because they are in such a malnutrition state. However, we really don't want those around, and these in this high state can be quite